All right, so today we're diving into um, a pretty interesting question. And, why do humans cook their food?
Right.
Unlike most animals, you guys sent in some research on raw meat specifically,
Yeah.
the pros and cons,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to unpack all of that. And,
Yeah, fascinating, isn't it?
yeah.
It's like this really unique human thing
Yeah.
to cook food systematically.
Right.
Other animals don't really do that. And it started
Yeah.
a while back, like 170,000 years ago, but became,
Yeah.
widespread about 200,000 years ago.
I see. So can we even eat raw meat like other animals?
Well, the research seems to say that we can,
Okay.
but there are some significant caveats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the sources point out
Gotcha.
a lot of potential risks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, raw meat can harbor all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Parasites, bacteria, viruses,
Sure.
things that can cause food poisoning.
Right.
You've got your salmonella, E. coli, trichinella,
Oh,
which
yeah.
causes trichinosis.
Yeah, and actually that reminds me
Yeah.
of that time I got sick from those oysters.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's actually a good example of how,
Yeah.
seafood, even though it's often eaten raw,
Right?
it can still carry risks
Totally.
because even though like the cold ocean environment,
Yeah.
and the flash freezing that they do helps kill most things,
Right.
there are things like norovirus and some toxins that survive
Wow.
freezing.
That's crazy.
So, shellfish
Yeah.
and certain fish
Yeah.
can still be a hazard.
So you're saying,
Yeah.
that sushi and sashimi I love,
Mm-hmm.
I gotta be
Be careful.
careful about where it's coming from.
Absolutely.
Okay, and
Yeah.
well, what about meat? Like,
Well, no.
I love a good steak,
Right.
seared on the outside,
Yeah.
but pretty rare in the middle. And the research mentioned that beef is considered a bit safer to eat raw than like pork or chicken.
Yeah, that's because beef has a lower water content
Okay.
and a tighter muscle structure.
What does that mean?
So basically, the muscle fibers are more densely packed,
Okay.
making it harder for the bacteria to thrive.
Interesting.
But searing the surface is still crucial
Okay.
because contamination can still happen.
So that searing instinct I have is
Yeah.
actually protecting me.
It is.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But what about ground beef?
Ground beef.
Yeah.
That's a different story
Okay.
because when beef is ground up, any bacteria that's on the surface
Right.
gets mixed in with the whole batch.
Oh, I see.
So the risk of contamination goes way up.
Gotcha.
Now, humans, we've evolved strong stomach acid.
Okay.
We can rival scavengers.
Wow.
But even so, some of these pathogens can survive that acidic environment
Right.
and they can cause problems,
Yeah.
especially because we have longer digestive tracts.
Mm-hmm.
So, things like Helicobacter pylori
Right.
can lead to ulcers and E. coli can lead to,
Severe diarrhea.
yeah,
So
not good.
not fun.
And then the research also mentioned that our immune systems,
Yes.
thanks to modern hygiene,
Right.
are less equipped to handle these pathogens than wild animals.
That's right. Because our immune systems are finely tuned for like
Right.
modern hygienic environments.
Yeah.
Wild animals, especially scavengers,
Yeah.
they're constantly exposed to way more pathogens.
Yeah.
So their immune systems just respond differently.
So they have like a more robust.
Absolutely. Their stomach acid plays a role too.
Okay.
Hyenas, for example, they have a pH as low as 1.0.
Wow.
And vultures can even get down to like 0.5.
That's insane.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's like a
It's like a superpower.
superpowered cleaning agent.
Exactly.
No wonder they can eat
I know.
things that would make us so sick,
It's amazing how evolution just tailors organisms to their environment.
right?
And it's not just the stomach acid.
Right.
They also have shorter digestive tracts. So food passes through much quicker.
Oh, interesting.
So that limits the time bacteria and parasites have to multiply.
So it seems like we're at a disadvantage.
In some ways, yeah,
Yeah.
when it comes to eating raw meat
Yeah.
compared to our wild counterparts.
Right.
But you also have to think about our eating habits are very different.
Sure.
Wild animals eat their kills fresh,
Of course.
whereas the meat we eat,
Yeah.
it goes through processing and transportation,
Right.
storage.
Yeah,
So there's a lot more chances for contamination.
that's true. So even if our bodies could handle it,
Yeah.
the meat itself might not be that pristine right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, but let's not forget that some people really like
Right.
the taste and texture of raw meat.
Absolutely.
It's not just
But-
about,
Totally.
braving the risks.
Yeah, like that melt in your mouth.
Yeah.
Tenderness of a perfectly prepared tartare or sashimi.
Right.
It's hard to beat.
It is delicious.
And then the research also mentions that raw meat retains some vitamins like
Yes.
B1, B2, and C,
Yeah.
and also omega-3 fatty acids
Hmm.
that are lost during cooking.
That is true, but
Yeah.
you can get those nutrients
Right.
from other sources.
Gotcha.
Okay. So we're not saying
Right.
sushi and rare steak
Yeah.
off the menu forever.
Not at all.
Okay.
It's about being aware
Okay.
of the risks and making choices
Right.
that you feel comfortable with
Gotcha.
based on your personal preferences and your health.
Like you said before, I
Yeah.
sear my steak.
Exactly.
That's a good way to minimize the risk,
That's a great example.
but still enjoy it.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So we've covered the potential downsides
Mm-hmm.
of raw meat.
Yeah.
And why humans may not be
Yeah.
as well suited
Right.
to handle it
Yeah.
as like wild animals. But what about the flip side?
Well,
What makes cooking such a game changer for us?
cooking has some definite advantages
Okay.
over eating raw. Okay.
It makes food easier to digest
Okay.
because the heat breaks down the complex proteins through a process called denaturation,
I see.
which basically unravels the structure of the protein
Okay.
and makes it easier for our bodies to absorb.
So it's like,
Yeah, it's like pre-digesting the food.
I see.
But,
Okay.
right.
And that ties into the theory
Yes.
that cooked food being easier to digest and energy-rich may have contributed to larger brains in humans.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And cooking doesn't just help with digestion.
Right.
It also denatures proteins and makes iron more bioavailable.
So what does that mean?
So that means that our bodies can absorb the iron more efficiently.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this brain-boosting
Okay.
theory a little more.
Yeah.
How did cooked food
Right.
potentially play a role in
Yeah.
human evolution?
The theory is that cooked food,
Right.
being easier to digest and more energy rich,
Right.
basically provided the fuel needed for our brains to get bigger.
Yeah.
And this fits into the whole narrative of human evolution,
Sure.
where dietary changes have always been a big part of shaping who we are.
It's amazing to think about these connections.
Isn't it?
That something as simple as cooking could have such profound implications.
I know.
Yeah, and there's another interesting
Yes.
aspect to consider too, that the act of cooking with its use of tools and planning, and often the social interaction that comes with sharing a meal,
Right. Exactly.
have also contributed
Yeah.
to human intelligence and social structures.
Absolutely, because it's not just about the food.
Right.
It's about that whole
Whole ritual.
ritual. Exactly.
Right.
You know, imagine our ancestors gathered around a fire,
Right.
sharing stories and laughter
Yeah.
while enjoying their meal.
I'm getting hungry.
I know, me too.
Just thinking about it.
Right.
So we've seen how cooking could have helped us
Yeah.
grow bigger brains, strengthen those social bonds,
Right.
and unlock a whole new world of
Yeah.
flavors and creativity
It is.
in the kitchen. But what about cultures where raw food is
Right.
still central to the cuisine?
Like
In Japan,
Japan. Yeah.
you mentioned earlier that they have a long tradition
Yeah. Long tradition.
of eating raw fish.
Exactly. Why is that?
Well, Japan's tradition of eating raw fish, sushi and sashimi, it's really interesting because it shows how cultural practices can influence what we eat.
Yeah.
Their food handling and preparation techniques are meticulous,
Wow.
and they really understand the risks and benefits.
Interesting.
And that has allowed them to safely enjoy raw seafood for centuries.
That's incredible.
It is.
That level of
Yeah,
expertise.
expertise and attention to detail.
Attention to detail.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
But haven't there been cases
Unfortunately, yes.
of food poisoning?
Yes.
Even in Japan, despite...
Yeah, like the yakiniku restaurant chain.
Yeah.
In 2011,
Yeah.
over 180 people got sick, and some even died
Wow.
from eating raw beef contaminated with E. coli.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it shows that no system is perfect.
Right.
And it really highlights
Yeah.
how important proper handling is.
Yeah.
And preparation
Yeah.
at every stage.
From farm to table.
From farm to table,
And
exactly.
it also underscores the point that
Yeah.
everyone responds to pathogens differently.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, you could have someone who gets
Yeah.
very ill from one strain of bacteria,
Right.
and someone else doesn't even have symptoms.
Wow.
So
So it's a complex interplay
it's a complex interplay
of factors.
of factors,
Yeah.
the type of meat, the handling, our individual immune systems,
Yeah.
even the bacteria in our gut.
Wow.
It's all connected.
That's crazy.
It is.
And it raises a question for me.
Yeah.
What if lab-grown meat
Oh, interesting.
Eliminate. Yeah.
The risks of raw consumption.
That's a really interesting question.
Right.
Yeah.
If we could create meat in a controlled environment, free of pathogens,
Yeah.
would that change how we think about
It could, yeah.
eating raw?
Yeah, it could become the norm.
Right.
It's fascinating to think about.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to stop for part 1.
Okay.
And we'll pick up
Sounds
some
like
things with part 2.
I'm excited.
All right.
Yeah. See that.
All right. So before we jump into lab-grown meat,
Okay.
I think it's worth going back to the idea
Yeah.
that cooking may have been a catalyst
Oh, yeah.
for cultural development.
Absolutely. The research suggests
Right.
that the very act of cooking,
Yeah.
with its inherent planning and using tools,
Yeah.
and often sharing the meal with others,
Exactly.
could have been a driving force behind human intelligence and social structures.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Early humans gathered around a fire, cooking and sharing a meal. It
Yeah.
really fostered cooperation,
Yeah.
communication, a sense of community.
And probably sparked a lot of creativity, too.
Definitely.
I can imagine early cooks,
Right.
like experimenting with different ingredients.
Trying new things.
Yeah. Different flavors,
Exactly.
techniques, and that's how we get all the diverse
Yeah. All these amazing traditions.
culinary tradition.
I know, it's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of transformation,
Okay.
let's go back to that mind-blowing concept
Yeah.
of lab-grown meat.
Lab-grown meat.
It sounds like something out of science fiction,
I know.
but it could be a game changer
Right. It really could.
for how we
Yeah.
think about
Yeah.
and eat meat.
Yeah. Essentially, lab-grown meat
Okay.
is about cultivating animal cells
Okay.
in a controlled environment.
Mm-hmm.
So we can produce meat without
Right.
traditional animal agriculture.
So instead of raising and slaughtering animals, we could essentially grow meat
Exactly.
in a lab.
That's it.
That's wild.
I know, isn't it amazing?
And one of the most exciting parts
Yes.
is enhanced safety.
That's right, because you're controlling the environment
Right.
so you can eliminate
Yeah.
the risk of contamination.
So theoretically, you could eat
Yeah.
a lab-grown burger raw
Yeah.
and not worry about
Exactly. No worries about food poisoning.
That's amazing.
It could totally change the way we think about
Right.
raw meat.
Imagine like steak tartare
Oh, yeah.
or even chicken sashimi.
I know, right?
Okay, stop. You're making me hungry.
I know, me too.
But what about the taste and
Oh,
texture?
that's the big question.
Right.
Can lab-grown meat really replicate
Right.
that experience
Yeah.
of traditionally produced meat?
Yeah.
Scientists are actually making a lot of progress.
Okay.
The early versions of lab-grown meat
Right.
were kind of bland
Okay.
and mushy.
Yeah.
But recent advancements have led to
Oh.
much better taste and texture.
So it's getting closer
It's getting much closer
to the real thing.
to the real deal.
It's amazing how quickly technology evolves.
It is.
But beyond safety and culinary aspects, there's also environmental implications,
Okay.
right? Because traditional livestock farming is a major contributor.
To greenhouse gas
There's
emissions,
so many things.
deforestation,
Yeah.
water pollution.
Right.
So lab-grown meat has this huge potential
Right.
to really reduce our impact.
Almost like hitting the reset button
Yeah.
on the food system.
It's a powerful idea.
And if we can produce meat
Right.
in a more sustainable way,
Yeah.
it could have such a
A huge positive impact
positive impact
You-
on the planet.
on the planet. And it's gaining traction.
Really?
Yeah, all over the world, we're seeing
Yeah.
more investment in research
Interesting.
and development,
Yeah.
and people are interested.
It's exciting
It is exciting.
to see this kind of innovation in
Yeah.
the food industry.
Yeah.
But let's be real.
Okay,
There's still challenges.
of course.
Right.
Yes.
Like the cost of producing.
Yeah, the cost is still pretty high.
Lab-grown meat is
Yeah.
significantly higher
Yeah,
than
it's a premium product
conventional meat.
right now. Yeah, it is.
But as production scales up,
Well, as production scales up and the process gets more efficient,
right,
we can expect the costs to come down.
it reminds me of
Yeah.
like flat screen TVs.
Exactly.
They used to be so expensive,
I know.
and
yeah.
now they're everywhere
Yeah, it's like it'll
How do
become the
things-
new normal.
and affordable.
Exactly.
I think lab-grown meat
I think so too.
would probably follow a similar trajectory.
I agree.
But even if the cost becomes more manageable,
Yeah.
there's still the question of
Okay.
public perception.
Yeah.
Some people might be grossed out
Oh, yeah, some people just,
by the idea
they don't like the idea
of meat
yeah.
grown in a lab.
Right, it's that psychological barrier.
It's like the old GMO.
Exactly. It's like the GMOs.
This thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There was so much.
Yeah. When GMOs first came out,
Skepticism.
everybody was worried.
Yeah, but as people learned more about it,
Right.
those concerns went away.
They subsided.
Yeah, and I
think the same thing will happen.
The same thing will happen
with lab-grown meat.
with lab-grown meat. It just takes
Right. Education and transparency are key.
education.
Yeah. As people become more familiar with it,
Right.
they'll understand the benefits,
Yeah.
the safety.
Right.
And I think those barriers will come down.
I was a little skeptical at first, but now I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, me too.
I'm eager to try it.
Yeah, it's exciting
when it becomes available.
It's a transformative technology.
Yeah.
That could really change everything.
Okay, so we've covered the risks and benefits of eating raw.
Mm.
The fascinating adaptations
It's amazing, right?
of wild animals.
Yeah,
The possibilities of lab-grown meat.
I know.
But there's one more thing I want to touch on.
What's that?
The ethical.
The ethical dimension
The
of food, of our food choices.
That's so important.
Right, because those ethical implications are becoming more
and more
important.
As we think about things like
Right.
animal welfare and sustainability.
Right. Traditional livestock farming raises a lot of
a lot of concerns.
about the treatment of animals.
Concerns.
Yeah, factory farming has been criticized.
Yeah.
For being inhumane,
Right.
for contributing to climate change,
Yeah.
for relying on antibiotics,
Yeah.
and all these intensive farming practices.
But lab-grown meat could offer a solution
It could.
to some of these
Yeah.
ethical dilemmas.
Yeah, if we could produce meat without harming animals,
Right.
it would reduce animal suffering
Yeah.
and create a more compassionate
Right.
food system.
But even lab-grown meat
Yeah,
isn't without
right, of course.
ethical or perfect.
Complexities.
Yeah, there's concerns about jobs
Right.
in the traditional meat industry.
People might lose
Yeah, there could be job displacement.
their jobs.
Yeah, and we have to think about
Yeah.
accessibility and affordability
Yeah.
and potential unforeseen consequences of this new technology.
It's a brand new territory.
Yeah, it's uncharted territory. It's important to talk about these things openly and honestly.
Open and honest discussions.
Yeah, we need to make sure
Yeah.
that lab-grown meat is developed and implemented in a way that benefits everybody.
Not just
a few.
a select few.
It's so interesting how this goes beyond
I know. It's not just about
the science, technology.
It's about our values.
It touches on
our ethics.
Our values, ethics.
And our vision for the future.
And our vision for the future of food.
Exactly.
Completely explode.
I know. It's been quite a journey.
A lot of fascinating.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Territory today.
Yeah, from foodborne illnesses to lab-grown meat.
From the microscopic to the big picture.
I know. It's been great.
It's been an incredible journey.
It really has.
And it highlights,
the
interconnectedness of food.
It's all connected.
Of health.
Our health, the environment. Our ethical responsibility.
Yeah, ethical responsibilities.
What stands out to you?
Yeah, what are you finding?
From everything we've talked about.
Most intriguing. It's amazing to me, as we're wrapping up this deep dive on raw versus cooked, that this isn't just like a scientific debate. It's
personal.
It's a personal one,
Absolutely.
too. Because at the end of the day, the decision of whether or not to eat something raw or cooked comes down to
you weigh the risks.
A personal assessment of the risks.
And the benefits.
Benefits in your own values.
And your values, exactly.
And preferences.
Right. There's no right or wrong answer.
Exactly. What might be fine.
Yeah, it depends.
So one person could be a total gamble for another.
Exactly. It depends on your age, your health, what you like to eat, your background.
Right. You bring up a good point about cultural background.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how different cultures have developed such unique
it's amazing.
Practices and traditions around raw food.
It is like the Inuit people.
Oh, the Inuit.
They've been eating raw meat and fish for centuries.
Wow.
It was essential to their survival.
Right.
In the Arctic.
And their bodies have adapted.
Your bodies and their gut microbiomes have adapted over time.
To handle it.
To handle that raw food.
Yeah. In
ways we might not understand.
That would be surprising to the rest of us.
Exactly.
It just shows how our relationship with food is so complex.
It's this interplay of biology, culture, and the environment.
Right. And even within a single culture.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Attitudes can vary so widely.
Absolutely.
I mean, take the U.S., for example.
Okay. Yep.
Some people love steak tartare and sushi.
Right.
But others are totally grossed out.
I know. It just depends
Oh, the idea.
on your experiences,
Your
background,
separate levels.
palates, and perceptions of food safety.
Absolutely.
And let's not forget the psychological aspect, too. For some people.
It's just like the texture.
Yeah, the texture or the smell of raw meat. It's just a total turnoff.
Yeah, it's just a total, it's primal, you know?
Turn off.
It is.
And that's why I think education is so important.
Absolutely.
The more we understand about
The more you know,
the science of food safety,
the better choices you can make.
the more informed
Right? You need to know
choices we can make.
how to handle raw meat properly.
If you know how to handle raw
Where to
meat
get it from.
properly,
Suppliers.
source it from reputable suppliers,
Exactly.
and understand
For your risk tolerance.
your own personal risk tolerance,
Mhm.
you can make a better decision
You can make good decisions.
about whether or not,
That's what it's all about. It's something you want to eat.
yeah, knowledge is power
Absolutely.
when it comes to food.
So as we wrap up
Yeah.
this deep dive,
Okay.
we've covered a lot of
Yeah.
fascinating ground.
A lot of ground.
We've explored the risks and benefits
Mhm.
of eating raw, the adaptations of wild animals,
The amazing adaptations.
the possibilities of lab-grown meat,
I know, it's incredible.
ethical considerations.
The ethical
They're
implications
kind of our food choice,
of what we eat.
how our decisions impact.
Right. All matters.
Animal welfare, the environment,
The planet.
the sustainability of our food system.
It's been a great conversation.
It really has.
Yeah.
And as we conclude, I want to leave you with a final question to ponder.
Okay, shoot.
If lab-grown meat does become widely available
Yeah.
and affordable,
Mm-hmm.
would you be open to trying it?
That's a good question.
Would you embrace a food technology
Yeah.
that promises to deliver the taste
Mhm.
and texture of traditional meat?
Yeah.
Without
Without all the baggage.
the ethical and environmental baggage?
It's a tough one.
It's a question we'll all be grappling with
We will.
in the years to come.
We will.
And it challenges us
It does.
to think about our values, our priorities,
Yeah.
and our role in shaping the future of food.
I like it. What will your choice be?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.
into the world of raw and cooked food.
It's been fun.
We hope you enjoyed it
Mhm.
and come away with something to chew on.
Some food for thought.
Until next time.
Yeah. See you later.